Hi, I'm Richard Miller. Welcome to this episode of Chef Richard's Kitchen. Today we're going to be baking bread. I always love making bread, but today we're going to make a rosemary olive bread. And you find these in some of the better artisan bakeries. Most of the time you won't find them in a grocery store, but you will find them in some of the artisan bakeries, mainly because you're putting olives and rosemary in there. It's more of a specialty thing. Works out well. We're going to start by adding 1 3/4 cups of warm water. What do I mean warm water? Well, right around between 105 115 degrees, somewhere around in there. Why there? Because number 2 ingredient, we're going to put in the yeast. And yeast absolutely loves that temperature right in there. That's kind of a perfect temperature for them to get going. They need to wake up. They need to start digesting the sugars in there. And that's a good temperature for it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in just about a cup of sugar. And we're going to put this on the mixer with the dough hook. And we're going to go ahead and just let it incorporate. This isn't going to make dough or anything like that. All this is going to do is it's going to get the water, the yeast, and a food source, which is the flour. It's going to get them all together, and then we're going to leave it for about 10 minutes. And this is what we call proofing the yeast. And when we start seeing bubbles on the top, we know that the yeast is woken up and it's going to be fine. If you don't have any on there, after about 10-20 minutes, you probably better use some different yeast because your yeast is dead. Alright, that's pretty much incorporated. Now we're going to wait 10 minutes and we're going to see how it does. Don't go away. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes and it's looking like these are the yeast in the starter starting to bubble nicely. While we wait for it to do the rest, I've got about 2 teaspoons of rosemary. This is just fresh rosemary. Came right out of my garden. And we're going to take and chop this up. And we're going to chop it pretty fine. You don't want it a powder, or we just use ground. But we do want it chopped. All right. Here we go. Now earlier, before I started the video, I took about 1.5 cups of Kalamata olives, and these are the olives we're going to use, and I chopped them up as well. And you don't want to use whole olives, although you could. I prefer them chopped, like I prefer the rosemary chopped. I prefer Kalamata olives. They're a nice brined olive, very flavorful, very salty. But when it's in with the bread, you don't notice that so much. You can use any brined olive that you like. If you like another type of brined olive, go ahead and use it. All right, now this looks like it's pretty well bubbling here. So let's go ahead and we're going to start adding some of the other ingredients. First thing I'm going to add is I've got about 1.5 teaspoons of salt. We're going to add the rosemary. I'm going to wait till the end. I'm not going to put the olives in with the mixer. And the reason for that is if we put them in and blend them up with a mixer or knead them in with a mixer, they're going to end up nothing but pulp by the time we're done. So I'm just going to leave them the way they are. And when we get the yeast rolled out, then we're going to fold them into that. And that's going to, put them in at a very uniform consistency, and number two, it's not going to completely pulverize the olives. Now we put in about a teaspoon and a half of honey. All right. And I've got a half a cup of whole wheat flour. Now let's go ahead and start mixing that in. All right, we've got about a cup and a half of flour in there as it is now. We want about 4 cups, but we're not going to rely completely on just the ingredient list, mainly because, your flour, it doesn't, mainly because it doesn't get to the right consistency guaranteed every time. It's much better you use your eye for it and just let your instincts be the judge. All right. I'm not happy yet. It's just really not slipping off the hook like it should. So I'm going to just add a little more flour, and because I want it just right. Now when your dough is pretty much consistent, you just add a little bit more flour. Start out lightly and then go easily, or you're going to end up with a big flour bath. Ask me how I know this. Alright, now the flour is kind of getting in there. Now we can raise the speed just a little bit. That's looking much, much better. Now we're going to go ahead and we're just going to let it knead for a while. And that's going to start developing the nice glutens that are going to hold the bread together. much better. I'm happy now. All right, now I'm going to take the KitchenAid down because it's time we need to fold in. We need to fold in our olives. Start by putting down some flour. Now let's turn our dough out. Okay. Just kind of spread this around a little bit. You can see our little rosemary pieces in there. Okay. Okay, let's start working our olives in. This was the old way. You needed your dough. Yeah, it looks like they're getting pretty well through there. We got a few coming out, but that's all right. Once the dough rises, remember, we're going to punch it back down anyway, and all that will be filled in, so don't worry. All right, I'm not going to use all of them because I think we're fine the way we are. I'm going to go ahead and set those down. Now, I have a bowl here, and I've just sprayed a little vegetable spray in there, and that's just because it makes it so much easier coming back out again. Let's put our dough in here, and I'm going to put it in a reasonably warm place, and we're going to let it rise for an hour. Cover it, and we're going to let it rise for an hour. I'll see you then. Hour, and as you can see, the dough has risen quite a bit. So now it's time to turn it out, and let's form it into a couple of loaves. So once again, we're going to put a little bit of flour down on our surface. And turn out our dough. Now this is going to make 2 loaves, so let's go ahead and let's cut them. All right. let's roll them into a couple of loaves. All right. Tuck the ends under, like such. There's one. Now let's do the same thing to the other. Again, tuck the ends under like this. All right. Now we have our pan. Go ahead and set these down on top. Now I use parchment paper. Some people, like to grease these, and some don't, but I like parchment, and I started using it and always kept with it. Don't have to worry about greasing it enough or things sticking or whatever. And unless you're going above about 450 degrees, you don't have to worry about parchment paper. So use it. Okay. There's our two loaves. I've started preheating the oven to about 400 degrees. While it's preheating, I'm going to go ahead and cover these again. And we'll probably let them rise for about another 20 minutes. Then I'm going to put a little egg white wash on the top, and we'll bake them. So we'll see you in about 20 minutes. Okay, the oven's heated up real nicely, and now I want to take and I want to put an egg white wash on here. And I just took and just separated the yolks from the whites, and then just whisked them just like I would any other egg wash. Let's just apply this. Okay, now let's put them in the oven. As I say, I've been heating this up to about 400 degrees. Now let's go ahead and I want to pop them in the oven. Now, okay, it's been 25 minutes. Let's go ahead and go back to the oven and let's see how our bread's doing. All right, let's take a look here, and when I open it, the bread looks really, really good. But to be sure, what you want to do is you want to use an instant read thermometer and just put it in from the end. It says 188, it's done. Now comes we have to let it cool. Any other steak or whatever you take it out, you need to let it rest. And the same with bread. If you don't, all that nice steam and heat and everything else, moisture that's in there, is going to evaporate right away, and you're going to end up with a dry as dust loaf. So I want to put it on this little rack, and we're going to just let it cool. are. We're going to let these cool about 2 hours, and then they're ready to go. What I plan to do with these, and I'm going to be catering a ladies' lunch here in a couple of weeks, probably about a month. And what I'm going to use these for is I'm going to take these and I'm going to cut them into chunks, and I'm going to serve them in a basket. And you've gotten them this way probably from a restaurant many times when they're in a basket, and then you get a little bowl or a dish with olive oil poured on it and some Italian seasonings. And that's what I'm going to use this. And there's another bread that I'm going to do. It's an Italian bread that's made with sun-dried tomatoes and basil. That'll probably be another episode on here, and that's what I'm going to serve. So, in the meantime, everybody stay happy, stay safe, God bless. And remember the first thing I always tell you, cooking should be fun. Remember that. See you next time.